Start. There we go. All right, so good morning, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. For those who don't know, we're all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. So this month is really exciting for us because this is our month celebrating women in science. Over 35 hangouts from amazing women from around the world. But as part of that, we're going back to the Turtle Hospital, which is one of our very favorite places. We've done at least 30 hangouts with them. So I'll introduce them in just a second. But first, we'll go through our classes that are joining us today. So we have Mrs. Steinhoff's grade 4s from Guelph, Ontario. Hi, guys. Mike's not demuting, but that's fine. We know you're there. We have Mrs. Gogny's grade 5s from Algonquin, Illinois. Awesome. We have Mrs. Claire's grade 4s from London, Ontario. Awesome. Okay, that's going to be hard to top. We have Mr. Baudouin's grade 4s from Guelph, Ontario. Okay, we're getting there. And then you'll have to demute your own mics. We have Mr. Van Rui's grade 3-4s from Belleville, Ontario. Woo! I like how much lower pitched that was. That was awesome. All right, and then we have Miss Sutherland's grade 1s from the. If you guys could demute your mic too. Grade 1s. Hi, guys. Awesome. We'll come back. All right. Of course, the reason you're all here today is for our amazing, we're joined on a virtual field trip by the Turtle Hospital in Marathon, Florida. So they rescue, rehabilitate, and reintroduce injured sea turtles. As I said, we've done many hangouts with them. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Teresa there, who's going to take us around the facility and blow our minds with some cool turtles. Thanks so much for joining us, Teresa.
You're welcome. We like being able to teach people about turtles. So we'll start off here with Dusenberry. She is one of our loggerhead sea turtles. And so the loggerheads get their name because they have a very, very large head. Like, look at that. It's huge. And they have such a big head because loggerheads are carnivores. So in the wild, they eat lots of crab and lobster, conch, things with a hard shell, which means they need a lot of muscles to break through those shells, which is why they have such a large head to house those muscles. But Dusenberry has been with us about a month and a half now, came in the middle of December. She was found floating. And so floating in a sea turtle is not normal because they eat at the bottom, they sleep at the bottom, they do everything at the bottom. So when they are stuck up at the top, they really do become stuck. And so when they're sick, they float. And that's how you know that a sea turtle is sick. So when we brought Dusenberry in, we did x-rays. We found out that she had a blockage in her intestines. It's what we call an impaction, but it's just like being constipated. Because sometimes they eat stuff they're not supposed to, so it blocks them up, they can't poop, they get gassy, which causes the floating. So we're giving her medications to help her poop and get rid of that gas. So she's getting better, but she needs more time. But their intestines kind of loop around like ours do. So depending on where that blockage is, where that gas is within their system, depends on how they float. So sometimes they float kind of sideways, which isn't very comfortable. So we attach Velcro down each side of her shell. That's what those two little strips are. So that way we can put foam blocks on either side of her shell, depending on how she's floating that day, to kind of help level her out. And the Velcro is nice because we can just move the little blocks around. But she's doing much better. When she first came in, she was really sideways. Now she's starting to be a little bit more butt up, which is a good sign because that means that that blockage is moving more towards the end of her system. And typically these impacted turtles are here for about 2 to 3 months. So she's kind of right on schedule. When she's past everything and past all of that gas, then she'll stop floating, and that means that she'll be able to be released. So hopefully just a few more weeks. But that does kind of depend on her, because it depends on the turtle and what's wrong with them as to how long they need to stay. And we're always getting turtles in because we are a hospital. One of our newest turtles is this little one. This is Miley. She just came in yesterday. And so she's currently getting a freshwater bath and a nice little scrub. She's doing pretty good so far. So when they first come in, we do a freshwater bath. One, it kind of gives us a chance to clean her up, because when they do come in, they're typically covered in algae, sometimes barnacles, sometimes parasites. So the fresh water will kill off any of the parasites, but fresh water is okay for her for a little while. And it also gives us a chance to see how well she swims, how well she does in water. Because if she can't handle a kiddie pool of water, she's not going to be able to handle a tank of water. So she's doing okay. She doesn't move around too much. She's pretty sick. She has tumors. So the green sea turtles, because Miley is a green sea turtle, they get their name because they are vegetarian. So in the wild, they eat seagrass and algae. And they eat so much green stuff that their fat, their insides actually turn green. But the green sea turtles have a virus called fibropapilloma, or FP for short, and it causes tumors to grow on any of the soft tissues. So there's little growths on her neck, her flippers, their eyes, which makes it very, very hard for these turtles to see or to swim. So they have to come in, we do surgery, and we remove all of those tumors. So she'll be kind of getting her little bath, getting her clean of algae for right now, before she's able to go into an actual tank. But she's doing so good so far. But eventually we'll get her tumor free, and then she'll kind of look, let's see, Urchin's doing really, really good. So Urchin came in with tumors. And I know some of these turtles have some very, very strange names, but it's typically the people that find the turtles that get to name them. That's why they do have some very strange names. So Urchin here is another green sea turtle, came in with tumors, but she's just about tumor-free now. So she's a lot more active. Because when a turtle is sick, they get very weak and lethargic. They don't move around a whole lot. Think about you when you get sick, how you get very weak and tired. You just kind of sleep all day. Well, same thing for the turtles. And then once the turtles start feeling better, that's when they start getting more active and they start eating better. And then that's kind of how we can tell that they're feeling better. But depending on the turtle, and especially when they come in with tumors, depending on how many tumors they have, depends on how long it takes to get them tumor-free. So turtles like Miley, that just came in, she's covered in tumors. It's going to take us a while to get her tumor-free. But when Urchin came in, his tumors were pretty small. So it only took, I think, 2 surgeries to get him tumor-free. Whereas some turtles, like Nonie, she's been here since middle of November. She had her second surgery yesterday. So she's got a little bandage on her flipper. That's where one of the tumors was removed yesterday. But she's still going to need more surgeries, because we can only do surgeries in increments of about an hour. So we'll just kind of remove a few tumors, give the turtle a few weeks, let them recuperate, let them heal up a little bit, and then we'll do surgery again. Because we'd rather kind of go slow and steady rather than trying to go too fast and cause more harm. But No Name got her name, and it's not that she doesn't have a name. Her name is No Name. She was found off of No Name Key, which is one of the islands down here in the Florida Keys. So it makes her kind of unique. But for the moment, she's just kind of sleeping, because when they are sick, they tend to sleep a little bit more, but that's okay. And when they are sleeping, they can hold their breath up to about 5 hours. So a lot longer than us. Okay, let's see. Is Giovanna awake? She is. So this is another one of our loggerheads. This is Giovanna. She was found by the Coast Guard back in the middle of December, about a month and a half ago. She was found entangled in a crab trap. So her right front flipper there is still all swollen. It's a lot larger than the other flipper. But she also has some old boat strike damage to the very back end of her shell. But that's older, that's completely healed. She'll just now always be scarred, but that's okay. Getting scars is part of growing up. Right now, we're just trying to fix her flipper. We're trying to fix that swelling. But it wasn't entangled enough that we had to do surgery because she still can use that flipper. It still has nice blood circulation and still has feeling. We just have to let it heal. So for the first kind of month, just about that she was here, we did leech therapy because the leeches will help kind of suck out some of the blood and the fluid that's just now sitting there. And leeches are really cool. They actually secrete special enzymes to help kind of break up the rest of the fluid to allow it to be absorbed a little bit faster. Plus, we're also doing some laser therapy and some physical therapy and kind of massage. So it has gone down quite a bit so far, but she's still going to need probably another month to 2 months. Kind of depends on her. Just like with people, sometimes it takes them longer to heal than others. But we'll just kind of have to wait and see. But so far, she's doing really, really awesome. But most of our turtles come in from the boaters and the fishermen, the people that are out there on the water. Because we are located on an island. So we're surrounded by ocean, which is why we have lots and lots of sea turtles. We also have some pelican friends today and some iguana friends. One of the joys of living in the Florida Keys. You get all sorts of wildlife. And so one of the great things about us being right here on the water is that when we do get turtles in, if the boat is close enough, they can just bring the turtle right here into us, into our docks. If they're not close enough, we do have a turtle ambulance. So that way we'll go pick the turtle up. But most of the time it's the boaters and the fishermen that find the turtle and just call us, say, hey, I found this turtle, now what? And then, of course, they get to name the turtle. But the turtle names do not always match up to the gender of the turtle. So turtles like Kevin sometimes end up being girls. Because when they're juveniles, they look identical from the outside. You can't tell just by looking at them if they're a boy or a girl. It's only once they hit adulthood, so about 20 to 30 years old, then if they're a boy, they get a very long tail. Gets up to about 13 inches in length, whereas if they're a girl, the tail stays really short, doesn't go past the end of their shell. So Kevin turned out to be a girl, but she's okay with that. They don't know what their names are. They're not like dogs. They don't respond to their names. The names are really just for us. But Kevin was bit by a shark, so she is missing both front flippers because sea turtles cannot pull their heads and their flippers inside their shell like a box turtle can. So their heads and their flippers are always out. And so when a sea turtle is getting attacked by a shark, their main defense really is their shell. So what they'll do is they'll twist and they'll turn. They'll keep their back or their belly to the shark. It's a lot harder for the shark to bite them that way. Think about you trying to pinch your hand. You can pinch the side of your hand very easily, but you try to pinch the palm of your hand, it's a lot more difficult. So kind of same thing with her. When she came in, she had scratches all over her back and all over her belly. But unfortunately, that shark also got her front flippers. So for right now, while she's still healing, we're keeping her in pretty shallow water because we don't want her to have to struggle too much, sort of our version of bed rest. But once she completely heals, we'll test her out in some deeper water, and we'll make that final determination as to whether or not she'll be able to be released. But typically to be released, they need 3 full functioning flippers. Kevin only has 2 rear flippers and then 2 little nubs up front, so most likely she'll need to stay and become a permanent resident. But even if she does need to stay, we might be able to give her prosthetic flippers. With the advancement of 3D printing, it's getting a lot more cost effective, but we'll have to wait and see. That's quite a ways down the road if we even need to do that. But most of our permanent residents live in here. We have a nice big tidal pool. It's connected directly to the ocean through a grate. So it's tidal. It rises and falls with the tides. There's little fish that can come in and out with the tides. So it kind of helps keep it more like a natural environment, which is kind of perfect for the turtles that were either trying to get ready to be released or the turtles that cannot be released. Because it's not fair to the turtle to keep them in a little tiny tank forever. So this kind of gives them a more natural environment. So we'll start with, this is Sam. She's one of our permanent residents. Sam has what we call bubble butt syndrome, which is what happens when the turtle gets hit by a boat. And because of the force of that boat strike, it causes air to get trapped underneath their shell. And so we cannot remove that air, so the turtle ends up floating permanently. So you can't release a floating sea turtle, so they have to stay here. But we like to attach lead weight to the outside of their shell, so that way at least here they can go down to the bottom and go to sleep, but eventually the weights fall off, so then they're back to floating again. So even with the weight, they still cannot be released. So Sam will be in captivity, kind of forever, but doesn't always mean here. Eventually she might be able to go to a zoo or an aquarium, because it's really the only way for a zoo or an aquarium to get a sea turtle, because they are an endangered species. So that means you can't just go out into the ocean and take a turtle because you want one. That would kind of be illegal. You'd go to jail. But one of our largest turtles, well, she is our largest turtle. Her name is Bowie. That's her right there. She's about a 300-pound green sea turtle, which, even as large as she is, she's not done growing yet. Green sea turtles get to be up to about 500 pounds, and sea turtles never stop growing. So the older the turtle, the larger they are. That's really the only way that you can guesstimate their age, is based off of their size. So Bowie is probably close to about 50 years old. Average lifespan's about 80 to 100 years old. So she's 300 pounds, so you can say, okay, she's quite a bit up there in age. Whereas turtles that are a lot smaller, like Corey's got bubble butt. She's only about 40 pounds, so maybe only about 10 years old. So a lot younger. But Corey is just a much lighter sea turtle. But that's okay. Corey just likes to hang out. And they do have their own personalities. Maybe not to the extent of like a dog or a cat or a dolphin, but they are unique. Some turtles are kind of feistier than others. Some are a little bit more mellow. So it keeps it kind of fun. Because once you get to kind of meet all of these turtles and spend most of your day with these turtles, you get to pick up all the little differences. And so even when they're here, especially when they're patients, we do like to keep their names written on their shell, because we want to make sure that when they are patients and they're getting medications, that we're giving the correct medications to the correct turtles. Just like for people, when you go to the hospital, you get a wristband with your name and all of your information on it. Well, these turtles are in the hospital, but they don't have a wrist, so they can't really get a wristband. So we just use a paint pen, and we write their name on their shell instead. So it doesn't hurt the turtle. And it rubs off after just a few weeks. So that way, even when they do get released, they're not going out with a name on their shell that could possibly make them stand out a little bit more. It's just to help us when they're here. But in all reality, once you do spend all day, every day with them, it gets to the point where the names are just helpful, but they're not exactly needed. You get to pick out all the little differences within their shells, because their shells are unique. So you won't ever find two turtles that look exactly the same. So some are lighter, some are darker, some have prettier patterns. Let me see, we've got one turtle up here that's really, really pretty. And so that's how you can tell them apart. But a sea turtle shell, you can't use it like a fingerprint. You can't use it for identification, because as the turtles grow up, as they get bigger, the pattern, it's going to warp, it's going to change. So they'll still be pretty, it'll just be a different kind of pretty. So like Timmy is a very pretty little turtle. And he is pretty little, he's only about 10 pounds. But he's got a very pretty shell. So as he grows up, because he's going to get big, bigger than Bowie eventually, but he's only 10 pounds, only just a few years old. So he'll still end up with a pretty shell, it'll just be a different kind of pretty. But Timmy came in because he has tumors. But Timmy is very, very skinny right now. And you might be wondering how you tell if a sea turtle is skinny. Well, you tell by looking at their neck, around their flippers, look at their belly. Because when a turtle is skinny, it's not like their shell changes size or anything. But if you look at his neck kind of looks sunken in. That's because he's skinny. A sea turtle neck should be at least as wide as their head, if not a little bit wider. But his is not. And if you were to flip him like upside down on his back, his belly would be concave. So it would look like he's sucking in his breath. But he's not sucking in his breath, he's skinny. So he's only in about 4 or 5 inches of water. So just very, very shallow water. Because he is still pretty sick. So he just kind of sleeps for most of the day. He does have some breakfast in his tank he hasn't quite eaten yet. But we like leaving food in there, so that way when he does get hungry, he can just munch whenever he wants to. Because turtles in the wild are typically grazers. So they're typically used to just being able to munch all day long. But he's doing pretty good. He's finally starting to eat on his own a little bit. But he just needs time. And sometimes that's all we have to do is just give them time to heal. Give them time for the medications to work and the therapies to work. Because all of a turtle's systems run a lot slower than ours do. Which in some ways is a good thing, because it means that when they do get sick, they don't get sick as fast as we do. But it also means that when we're trying to get them better, they don't always get better as fast as we want them to. So we just have to go slow. Okay, so I think it might be time for some questions.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Teresa. That was wonderful. So let's go. First of all, I have to say that I love the reactions to the 300-pound turtle and how many kids tried to pinch the middle of their palm. That was outstanding, so thank you for that. All right, let's go to Mrs. Steinhoff's class first. If you guys have a question, come on up. It would appear, sorry, before you go, your mic, for some reason it's not letting me demute your mic, so just go to the top of your screen, little microphone symbol, and if you click that, it should work. Undo it. If not, we'll come back to you. There you go. You're good.
Okay.
Has a turtle ever died before?
Well, we are a hospital. Sometimes it does happen because sometimes when the turtles come in, they've been sick for so long that there's nothing we can do to help. But whenever a turtle does die, we always do a necropsy. So a turtle autopsy to figure out why they died or how they died. So that way we can use that knowledge to help other turtles. Especially helpful when we have like a larger stranding event. So when we have a lot of turtles coming in all at the same time, and if we have a number of them die, well, we can do the necropsies on them to try to save the other turtles.
Good question. All right, let's go to Mrs. Dogme's class.
Oh, great. Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so I have a lot of questions.
We'll start with one.
So what is your favorite turtle species, and about how many have you rescued? Also, what is the most sickest turtle you have gotten? And also, what is the hardest part of your job?
Okay, so we've been here for 32 years now. Well, just about 32. It'll be 32 years this year. In that time, we've released over 1,600 turtles. So a lot of turtles. So it's kind of hard to pick a favorite because they're all pretty awesome. They each have their own qualities that make them unique. And a lot of the times the turtles that have kind of the worst injuries are the ones that come in with multiple problems. So let's see if I can find Montel, or see if Montel is hiding today. Montel is one of our permanent residents. He's one of those turtles that had everything happen to him. So he's been hit by a boat, bit by a shark, entangled in fishing line, and he's had tumors. So he came in a mess. And a lot of the times those turtles are the hardest to heal because it's not just one problem you have to fix, it's multiples. But he looks like he might be hiding today, because I do not see him. That's unlike Montel. But he's a turtle. Here's Montel. He's hiding over here. So this is big guy here, this is Montel. So he's missing half of his right front flipper, all of his left front flipper, his right eye, and his shell is dented there on the left side. So he only has 2.5 flippers and 1 eye. He's not very fast, so that's why he can't be released.
I think that might have covered all the questions, but there were so many, and that was so awesome. All right, we can definitely come back to that class too if you have more. For now, let's go to Miss Player's class. If you guys have a question, come on up. Oh, get a little closer to the computer so we can hear you. You're a little too far away. There we go.
How many turtles have got eaten by a shark?
We've had quite a few. Right now, like we've got Montel, Fran there. She's missing a flipper due to a shark attack. We have Kevin, Daly, Stony. We have quite a few right now. But sharks have to eat too. Turtles are part of a shark's natural diet. So you can't really fault the shark that turtles are so tasty, but it's just not always fair to the turtle. I can't really imagine that they like being nibbled on. But as long as the turtle has 3 flippers, they can still be released. And like one of our smallest little guys, we have a little kind of baby green. This is worldwide. And so he's just a little guy. He's only about kind of 4, maybe 5 months old. So, baby! But he was found. He got kind of nibbled on, so he's got some damage to the back end of his shell. His one rear flipper is a little bit smaller. So we're keeping him till he just gets a little bit bigger, and then releasing him, because we want to make sure that he has no problem swimming. But so far, he seems to be doing pretty good. He really, really likes swimming around in his little toy there. Because in the wild, they're used to having rocks and ledges and reefs and seaweed, things that they can hide under or sleep under, rub their shells up against. So here, we like to give them PVC pipe, so that way they can play and rub their shells up against that.
Awesome. What a beautiful turtle. All right, just quick note before we go to Mr. Baudouin's class. There are some groups watching online live. If you guys want to submit a question in the YouTube chat bar, I can pass it along to Teresa, so feel free to do that. But for now, let's go to the other class. Whoa. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Karen.
How many turtles do you guys have?
Teresa, did you catch that?
Not quite.
How many turtles do you have at the hospital right now?
Currently, we have 53. So every year we typically get in about 100. We've gotten about 15 so far this year, which is a little bit higher than average. But we've gotten quite a few this year from cold stunned. Sea turtles are reptiles, so they're cold-blooded. They get their body temperature based off of the water temperature. So if the water temperature gets a little bit too cold, the turtles get too cold, so they get cold. Their bodies start to kind of shut down, just like people in hypothermia. And that's why they typically like the Florida Keys, because it stays pretty warm down here all year round. But we've gotten some transfers from kind of the northern end of Florida, because back in January we had some cold. Not as cold as Canada, but cold to us.
Like a little dig there. I like that. That's funny. All right, so we've got 2 other classes. Now, I know you're both new classes, and I'm sorry that you have to do your own mics. It just doesn't give me the option. So Mr. Van Rui's class, if you guys want to come up, go right ahead.
What kind of food do the turtles eat?
Well, it depends on the species. So the green sea turtles are herbivores. So they in the wild they eat seagrass and algae. Here they get romaine, lettuce, kale, green peppers, green stuff. And then the loggerheads are carnivores. So in the wild they eat crab and lobster, conch, anything with a hard shell. And then when they're here, like here's a little baby loggerhead. This is Poseidon, he's only 6 months old. So here they get fish and shrimp and squid. Still meat, but stuff that's a little bit easier for them to digest. But yeah, this is little Poseidon. He's only about a 6-month-old loggerhead, so just a little bit bigger than worldwide. But he's one of our Head Start turtles, which means that we're going to keep him for the next 2 years, let him get nice and big and strong and healthy, so that way when he does get released, he'll be a lot bigger, so not as many things will want to eat him, so he'll have a much better chance of survival and basically have a head start on life.
All right, let's go to Miss Sutherland's class in Ottawa. Again, just come on up and right at the top of the screen, little microphone symbol. And then you can, oh, you had it for a second. There you go, good.
Bend down.
How long can turtles live?
Average lifespan is about 80 to 100 years. So, pretty long time. So, like, these little babies will outlive us.
Good question. I'm glad that got asked. All right, let's go back. We'll do another round of questions. So, Miss Steinhoff's class, if you guys have another question, and it looks like you do, go right ahead.
What is your biggest turtle?
Our biggest turtle would be Bowie, that 300-pound green sea turtle in our big pool. Let's see if I can find her again. Not that she's really hard to miss, because she's huge. That's Bowie. And so she came in for the summer. She was found floating, so that's why they named her Bowie. We're not completely sure yet if she'll need to become a permanent resident or not, because even though she does sometimes float, sometimes she's able to sit on the bottom by herself. So we're kind of hoping that by giving her the larger pool to swim in, she can kind of work out the rest of that intestinal gas, because when she came in, she was pooping out bits of plastic. Looked like bits of plastic bag. Because sea turtles will eat pretty much anything, especially things like balloons and plastic bags, because floating in the water, they look like jellyfish. They look like food. So the turtles eat it thinking that it's food, and then it makes them sick. That's why you always got to be really, really careful to make sure not everything ends up on the ground or ends up in the water.
Good message. All right, let's go back to Miss Gogne's class.
All right, come on down. Yeah, we have some more. Come on, Alice.
What is the hardest part of your job?
Well, depending on what turtles we have and how many turtles we have, depends on how kind of physically demanding it is, because some turtles are harder to take care of than others. So like Bowie, when she first came in, she was kind of a doozy because she's huge. But little turtles like Timmy, who's only 10 pounds, he's really easy to move and to do meds and to take care of and do x-rays. But when you have a turtle that's weighs more than you do, it takes a little extra care and handling. So that's always sometimes difficult. But a lot of times the hardest part is letting them go. Because when they're here and we're taking care of them, we get attached to them. So when they do get healthy, that means they're ready to go home, so we have to release them. And even though they do get tagged when they get released, so that way if they do ever pop up anywhere else, we know who they are, we kind of have to release them knowing that we're never going to see them again. So release days are always very happy, and at the same time, kind of sad.
Awesome. I'm really glad that question got asked. All right, let's go back to Miss Player's class. You guys have another question.
tell us more about how you use 3D printing to help turtles?
Well, we haven't needed to do that here yet, but they have done it at other facilities. So, what was it, about a year and a half ago, a loggerhead sea turtle over in Turkey, the turtle had ended up with jaw damage, so it couldn't really eat very well. So they actually 3D printed a jaw, a new beak for the turtle. So the turtle still needs to stay in captivity, but now that turtle can eat a lot better than it did. But they still need to stay in captivity, because if that were to somehow fall off, then they can't come back for a checkup. And the fact that turtles never stop growing, so eventually the turtle will outgrow it. And also, in the Florida Keys, down at the Key West Aquarium, they have a 3-flippered Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. Her name is Lola, begins with an L. So she actually has a prosthetic flipper to help her swim a little bit better. So prosthetic flippers have been done. It used to be that the prosthetics were way too expensive, because it's not just one and done. It's going to take you multiple tries to get that kind of prosthetic to fit right and to get the turtle to accept it. So it takes multiple tries, which kind of increases the cost. But with the 3D printing, the costs are a lot lower. And so the Key West Aquarium partnered with an engineering school. And so it was pretty much the students' kind of senior project. So they did most of the work, and they just kind of helped with the fitting and the turtle part. So now that turtle can swim a lot better now, because she now can have 4 flippers.
Outstanding. I love, too, how in all the classes, I'm sure you can see it, Teresa, like the kids are getting steadily closer to the camera. Awesome. Just like so many questions. All right, we'll go back to the second class in 12. So Mr. Baudin's class, if you guys have a second question, whenever my mic wants to work, you might have to demute your own, but if you guys have a second question, go right ahead. Now the screen is black. Very unsure of itself. Okay, we'll come back to that class in a minute. Who's next? We have Mr. Van Ruij's class. If you guys want to demute your mic, go right ahead.
How much do baby green turtles weigh?
Well, that depends on the baby. When sea turtles are first born, they're only about 2 to 3 inches long. So they're tiny. So it's like a matter of grams. Like even this little guy, like you can't even measure it in pounds yet, because he's still tiny. But sea turtle eggs are basically slightly larger versions of ping pong balls, because they're white and they're round and they're smooth, just like ping pong balls. So that those little babies have to come out of that. And sea turtle eggs are actually really, really cool, because they're not hard like chicken eggs. They're kind of a tough, leathery feeling.
Awesome. All right, back to Mr. Baudin's class. There we go.
All right, Alessio.
How did you find turtles with tumors?
Well, when a turtle is sick, it doesn't matter how or why they're sick. If they're sick, they float. And so that's how we know that something is wrong. So that they, like even turtles like Dusenberry, that there's not anything visibly wrong on the outside. You know that because they're floating, you know that they're sick. But when they do have tumors, it's pretty evident that they're sick, because you can see the tumors. Or if they are entangled, you can see the entanglement or boat strike, things like that. And so that's how the boaters and the fishermen, the people know that that turtle is sick. So that's how they know that they need to come in. So like Eugene here, she had surgery yesterday. So she's still kind of bandaged up. But she still has lots more tumors. So she's going to need a few more surgeries before she gets completely tumor-free.
Excellent. All right. Miss Sutherland's class, if you guys want to come up, do your mic thing again, and we'll get one last question in.
Here, come here.
No, it's
Are some sea turtles camouflage?
Well, they're not gonna like camouflage like a chameleon will. Like they're not gonna change their colors. But the colors of the different species at the different life stages do kind of camouflage them into their environment. So like green sea turtles, like these guys in the wild, typically live near seagrass beds or in seagrass beds. So that's why they have the very pretty patterns on their shell to kind of help them blend in a little bit better to the grasses. Just like leopards and cheetahs and tigers have stripes and spots, because it kind of helps break them up. When they're babies, go back down to the babies, the baby loggerheads, that's when they live more offshore in the floating sargassum seaweed, which is kind of a reddish brownish color. So that's why little baby Poseidon is kind of that reddish brownish color, because it will allow him to kind of blend in with the seaweed. And like when he kind of just is sleeping, he tucks his front flippers on top of his back, his rear flippers underneath. So that way, when he kind of tucks himself up into the seaweed, he just looks like another blob of seaweed. He doesn't look like a turtle, so it makes him less likely to be kind of eaten. Green babies kind of take it one step further. These guys have what we call counter shading, which basically means that he's black on the top and he's white on the bottom. Because he's a little bit more kind of open ocean, and that's how you blend in to the open ocean. Because when you're out in the ocean, you look down, it's very dark, so his top is dark. But if you're under the ocean, you look up, it's very light, so his belly is white. That's why penguins are black and white. There's lots of different fish and great white sharks. That's why they are colored the way they are. It's how you camouflage to nothing. And then as they grow up, that's when they get them kind of more brownish, kind of more patterned shell, because they change from offshore open ocean animals to more nearshore, shallow water seagrass animals.
All right, we've had so many great questions, and because we're running close to long, I want to ask one more on behalf of all the classes, and that is, if you're a kid in one of these classes, how can you help protect sea turtles? What can you do as an individual?
Well, an easy way to kind of help sea turtles is to, one, not litter. Try to recycle as much as you can, because everything winds up in the ocean eventually. And something that a lot of people don't always think about are balloons. Because if you let a balloon go into the air, it has to come down eventually. A lot of the time it does that over the ocean, and then these turtles see plastic bags or balloons floating in the water, and they eat it thinking that it's food, thinking that it's jellyfish. So it makes them sick.
All right. Well, what we do at the end of every hangout for all the classes is we're going to demute everybody's mic. So Miss Steinhoff's class, Miss Scogny's class, Player's class, Sutherland, everyone. And if you guys want to join me in saying a big thank you to Teresa. So thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Oh, they're going to come to us.
Awesome, guys. Teresa, thank you so much. That was wonderful.
You're welcome.
And we look very forward to coming back with you guys soon for all the other classes. We're doing a whole other month of Hangouts, all with amazing women in science from around the world. So please do join us for the first time classes. Thanks for coming in and seeing what we're all about and exploring by the seat of your pants. And for now, have a lovely rest of your day, guys.